From CBS 47 and Fox 30, it's time for This Week in the 904.
Welcome to This Week in the 904. I'm your host, Emily Turner. This is a community affairs show. It focuses on politics, public policy, and all the issues that affect our local communities. And joining us today is newly elected Congressman Fine. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time. So, newly elected, let's start with what we were talking about a little bit before the show. Who you are, kind of what you stand for, because you're relatively new to this area.
Well, yeah, had you asked me 5 months ago if I was going to be in Congress, I would have told you were crazy. 5 months ago, I won a seat in the state Senate. 2 weeks after that, President Trump asked me to run to fill the spot of Mike Waltz. Wasn't a plan that I had, wasn't a long-term goal of mine. And so really, still have the opportunity to introduce myself to people, tell them I'm a 3-time entrepreneur. Politics was never my goal. I started, built, and grew 3 companies. I've got 2 kids. And in my time in the legislature, I was known as the tip of the spear of the conservative issues that people like. When we did universal school choice, I was behind that. When we did the Parents' Bill of Rights, I was behind that. When we eliminated the ability of parents to cut the body parts off of their children in the name of fake transgender science, that was my bill. And I think that's why President Trump asked me to run, and I look forward to showing people that I'm going to bring that same approach to Washington.
And the race, it was interesting in kind of the final days. There was so much speculation at a national level about fundraising because your opponent out-fundraised you. But it's such a deeply red district. What is your impression? What do you tell people who want to be doubters about it? And you still won by double digits.
Well, I won by the same margin that Ron DeSantis won by when he ran for Congress in that district the first time. And I won by more than Mike Waltz won by when he ran for Congress in that district the first time. And neither of them had $15 million spent against them. Look, we knew it was all astroturfed. So my opponent raised $15 million. 2% of it came from Florida. 98% of the money didn't even come from the state, let alone the district. He had no support there. And so what we tried to tell people was 2 things. Number one, Democrats were angry, and that is true, and they were going to turn out, and they did.
One of the things that has made headlines, or that was speculated about, was, is this a harbinger of what's to come in the midterms? Is this the Democrats fighting back to say, we're going to take back our country? And the numbers show that that was clearly not the case. What is your message to the folks who were leading that message?
Well, I hope it's a harbinger, because if they can spend $10 million to my $1 million and I can win by 14 points, then they're going to have a really tough time next year. I think what we have to show in Washington as Republicans is that we know how to govern. The reason Florida is an overwhelmingly Republican state, we used to be a close state, and what we showed over 25 years of conservative House members and conservative senators and conservative governors, we showed that we knew how to run the state.
When it comes to why you think Florida has changed inside the state, I mean, people have been moving here. You think it's, we're doing things right, or do you think maybe there's some other factors at play? Fewer older people moving here? I mean, what is your thought on that?
No, I think people move here because they like what's here. You know, during COVID, tons of people moved here because they wanted their kids to go to school. They want to live in a place with lower taxes where we don't coddle criminals. We've shown all the problems that you see when I travel the country. We don't have them here. No one blocks our roads here. We don't have homeless people sleeping everywhere. We run the state the way the country should be run. And I say we. The Florida miracle, and that's what I think it is the result of hundreds of people over 25 years. Governors are part, legislators are part. But what you have is when you take 100 or 150 or 200 really good conservatives and you put them in one place, they come up with a lot of good ideas, and then we have to execute on them. And so people have moved here because they want that. And that's what we have to show the country. It worked here. It can work everywhere. Florida is a huge state. We're a microcosm of the country. And if we can govern this state as effectively as we have, we should be able to do the same at the national level.
Do you attribute that success to the legislature or to the governor?
I attribute it to legislatures and governors. Going back to Jeb Bush, Rick Scott, Ron DeSantis deserves some of the credit. But a lot of the great ideas that we come up with come from the legislature. You may not even know those people's names. Chris Sprouse was the guy who came up with the Parental Bill of Rights. He was the Speaker of the House. A lot of the stuff that we've done that's dealt with anti-Semitism came from me. School choice was Paul Renner's idea. He wanted a standard school choice for everybody. So you've got a lot of people coming up with good ideas, all working together, at least until recently. But we have shown that we know how to govern in the state.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're known as somebody who give you the ball, you'll get it across the finish line. But it's not often you hear you compliment Governor Ron DeSantis.
Well, I said he deserves part of the credit. I think, unfortunately, he tries to take all of the credit. But no, obviously he's done good things, and so have a lot of other people. I mean, I've never said he was a bad governor. I think he's got a lot of problems. But no, I mean, he certainly deserves a lot of credit. He did a great job running the state during COVID. I think the problem he made then is he assumed that because he did COVID so well, he knew everything, and he didn't need to talk to anyone. And now we end up where we are. But I think, look, Governor DeSantis is on his way out. We need to be focused on the next generation that's going to be coming up.
Well, and that's what we want to talk to you about next. We are going to go to break really quickly. But when we come back, we'll be talking about the next generation, what potentially we'll be bringing home, you'll be bringing home here to the Sunshine State. Stick around. We'll be right back.
From CBS 47 and Fox 30, you're watching This Week in the 904.
Welcome back to This Week in the 904. Our guest this Sunday is newly elected Congressman Randy Fine. We were talking about the next generation of Florida. What do you think that looks like?
Well, I think we're going to have a governor's race. I've endorsed Byron Donalds. I think he will be the next governor of the state. I think he'll be an amazing governor. He and I got elected to the Florida House at the same time. But you're also talking about new people going to Congress, people like me who've just got there, who are bringing new and innovative ideas. And one of the great things about how Florida works is we have term limits. So we're constantly getting new energy.
When it comes to what you want to do on Capitol Hill, what are your priorities there?
Well, my number one priority is to make sure President Trump's agenda gets passed. I talked a lot about showing that we can govern. And I believe that when you have a team captain, and we do, who got a mandate like he did, it is our job to help him run the country. If he comes up with a crazy idea, that doesn't mean I'll sign off on everything. But unless it's that, I think we have to keep our eye on the ball and realize it's not about ourselves. It's about making America great again.
Are there any particular, specific issues?
Sure, that are important to me. I'll tell you, number one for me is the budget. We cannot live in a country that spends $2 trillion a year that we don't have. America will collapse in the lifetime of my children if we don't do something to solve this problem. And I'm not willing to saddle this on them. That's a big one for me. I just got put on the Education and Workforce Committee. Education is why I ran for the legislature 8.5 years ago. And so that's really important to me. I'd like to see the kind of innovation that we have in Florida brought nationwide. I'd also like to see the Department of Education shut down. And I'd like to see the student loan crisis dealt with by telling universities, if a student takes loans to go to your school, you better make sure they graduate, and you better make sure they can pay them back, because if they can't, you're going to get stuck with the bill.
Oh, wow. That's a big one.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. Schools love to get kids in there, and they love them to get student loans. And if they don't graduate, oh, well, we still got the money. The student loan crisis in this country is actually not a crisis for those who get their degrees. The crisis is those who borrow the money don't finish, because then they don't have the degree that's supposed to help them pay the loans back. Schools don't have an incentive because they're not responsible for the loans. And you've got too many people getting loans and degrees where they're never going to be able to get a good job. So these are things I want to tackle as well.
One of the interesting things about you, you will be one of the very few Jewish people.
I'm the first Jewish Republican ever elected to Congress from Florida.
And there's only, I think, 7 total,
There
right?
are 4 Jewish Republicans. There are some number of Democrats. I'm not sure how many.
I mean, how does that, because anti-Semitism has been a big topic here with, the broadcasting on the side of the stadium and all of that. I mean,
I passed a bill that made that stop. You don't see that happening anymore.
Right, and especially with what's happening with Israel. I mean, how does that kind of affect your policy?
Well, it's important to me. Look, that's who I am. I had a life where I dealt with a lot of anti-Semitism when I was a kid. I know what it's like, and I'm not willing to have my kids or other Jewish kids go through that. That's why Florida's the best place in the country to be Jewish. We have the least amount of this stuff, and it's because of bills that I passed. I want to bring that to Washington. But it's also important that we stand with Israel. We have to show in this country that we stand up for our friends and we stand up to our enemies. And under Joe Biden, we didn't do that. We did the opposite. So Israel is important because they're a country that shares our values. You go to Israel, and other than the language, Tel Aviv could be Miami. It's a lot like Florida. But the other thing is the same people trying to kill the Israelis, they want to kill us too. Why do they focus on Israel? Well, it's closer and it's little. They succeed in Israel, they're coming here next. And whether it was 9/11 or all the other terrorist attacks we've seen done by Muslim terrorists, they want to come here. We're next on the list. And so standing with Israel is very important to me, and I will be one of the leaders fighting on those issues too.
Explain the difference between supporting Israel as the United States and the United States supporting Ukraine.
Well, they're different. I mean, look, Israel is fighting Muslim terror. Muslim terrorists who are very clear that Israel's just the first stop. They want to take over the world and create a Muslim caliphate, and they want to kill us too. Ukraine is a war between two countries. What Russia did was not okay, but that is more of a traditional war between, again, a bad guy, Vladimir Putin, and another country. But they're not the same.
One of the things that you did, we were talking about education, when you were in the state capitol, was campus carry.
Mm-hmm.
For folks who don't know what that bill was, what is it, and how do you feel like that could have or potentially would have changed what happened at FSU?
Well, we know it would have changed. I'll talk about it in a minute. Campus carry is very simple. It gives you the right to carry a weapon on college campuses that you can across the street. At the University of North Florida, there is no fence that goes around the school. There are no metal detectors at every entrance to enter. So there's no magical force field. And so when you can carry a gun across the street, but you're not allowed to carry it on campus, what you do is you put out an advertisement to bad people that, hey, this is a gun-free zone. People can't protect themselves here. So all I wanted to do is give people the same rights on campus that they have on campus. Nothing extra, no different people, just the same rights. Now, how would it affect the tragedy at Florida State? We had heroes at Florida State. We had law enforcement run in and subdue the shooter within, somebody was telling me, I think it was 4 minutes yesterday. But in that 4 minutes, that shooter was able to shoot 7 people, killing 2. Now, if one of those 7 people had been able to carry and chosen to defend themselves, maybe something different would happen. When you rely on law enforcement, as heroic as they can't be there in 1 second. Campus carry allows you to protect yourself in the same way you can when you're walking down the street today. And I wish they'd had it then, and I hope that they'll do it here in Florida in the future.
What do you say to opponents who say, well, that would make campus feel less safe, or
Sure.
that would potentially allow someone who has malintent to come on campus?
If they have malintent, they can come on campus right now. See, I think a lot of opponents of this, they live in the world of sunshine, rainbow, unicorns, and pixie dust. They live in the world the way they wish it was, not the way it is. Gun control only applies to people who follow the law. The guy who brought the gun on campus was breaking the rules. He was campus carrying on a campus. So, I mean, if colleges were like airports, then maybe you could make that argument. But there is no magical force field that separates a school from the rest of the world. And I think people have the right to protect themselves. And there are 7 people who the government of Florida said, you do not have the right to protect yourself. And 2 of them are dead.
Well, we have a lot more to talk about. We are going to talk more specifically about what's going on in Tallahassee and his thoughts on that. So be sure to stick around. We'll be right back.
From CBS 47 and Fox 30, you're watching This Week in the 904.
Welcome back to This Week in the 904. Our guest today is Congressman Randy Fine. You've spent far more time in Tallahassee at this point than you have in D.C. When it comes to what you've seen happen this session, because it's really a session unlike any other in DeSantis's time in the governor's seat, how would you describe it?
Well, it's crazy. I mean, I was there for the first 4 weeks. I've been in Congress really for 1, so I obviously have a better perspective on it. Look, I think when the governor decided that if you disagree with him, you're his enemy, I think the wheels come off the bus. I mean, Danny Perez is a brilliant guy, he's a smart guy. I'd walk through fire for the guy. I was on a leadership team with him for the last 2 years. Ben Albritton is my friend. These are all people who want what's best for Florida. Sometimes they disagree on the right way to get there, and I think if they talked more and they fought less, I think you'd see a lot different result than you see right now. Well,
it's interesting because, in sessions past, it was clear if you were not a DeSantis reporter in some respects, some legislation, that wasn't going to get across the finish line. That isn't happening this time. How has that changed what has been able to pass or the type of legislation that's come out of this session?
Well, DeSantis was in a very different place a few years ago. He's much more powerful. Now he's a lame duck, and he's on the way out, and everybody knows it. And they also don't like how they've been treated for the last 6 years. I mean, he's not invested a lot in relationships. Look, I was an early adopter on fighting with Ron DeSantis. Now it's cool. And so I saw this for years. And I just think that people want their own agendas. And you also have to remember, speakers only get 2 years. This is their 2 years. They believe their opinions should matter. And I think Ron started off very badly with how he handled things on immigration by trying to push people around. And I think if there had been more discussion and more communication, you might have ended up with a different result. We'll see how it all ends up, but it's certainly not a great situation for anybody.
Do you think the reason you say he's a lame duck. Do you think that's because this is his last term, or do you think it's because he's eroded some of the political capital he's had over the years with some of these things like the Hope Florida scandal and all of that?
Well, I think he's on his way out. And look, his peak of power, he ran for president and ran the biggest failure of a presidential campaign in history, $150 million. I got 4 times as many votes running for Congress as he got in Iowa. I mean, it wasn't a great, and I didn't spend $150 million. So I think there's frustration, and I think when you face a defeat like that, a failure like that, that's time to regroup and figure out a new way forward. He chose not to do that and chose to sort of double down, and I think legislators said, look, we have our own things we want to get done. We helped you. We passed what you wanted. And most of the time, the legislature and the governor are in alignment on things. But DeSantis has been very clear. It's either his way or the highway. And a lot of it is just posturing. I mean, I saw it. Look, I was one of the sponsors of the immigration bill. And we went through all of this stuff. And then in the end, he signed the bill that we wanted. So I don't understand what a lot of it is. I think a lot of it may be thinking about what's going to play well on Fox News or thinking about a political future. But on the policy side, it certainly hasn't been great.
When it comes to the Hope Florida stuff, this week the legislature said we're not going to continue moving forward with that investigation. But what is the appearance of that? And what do you think that does to someone's reputation?
Well, it appears that they, stole Medicaid money and spent it on a political campaign. I mean, I think that's pretty clear at this point. I think it's bad. I don't know how much the governor knew and when he knew it. I don't know how much Casey knew and when she knew it. It seems pretty clear that the attorney general was up to his eyeballs in it. And I think it's ugly and I think it's bad. And I think what it shows is sort of a ruthlessness and a view that the ends justify the means. I saw this a few years ago. You may not remember this, but I had a bill after 12 school districts illegally did mask mandates. I said they should be punished for doing that. And I wanted to take $200 million away from those school districts and give it to the 55 school districts that didn't do it. The governor did not agree with my bill. He made it very clear, but I got it passed anyway. And I got it passed in a way that you couldn't veto it. He didn't veto it, and then he wrote a letter to the Department of Education demanding they not follow the law. So I saw this years ago, and it concerned me then, and it concerns me now. The ends don't justify the means. It's not just what you want to do, it's how you do it that matters. Because we're all performing not just for ourselves, we're performing for the man upstairs. And in my case, I worry about how my kids will judge me when I do all of this. I think about that every day, and I think if more politicians did, they would probably do different things than they're actually doing.
It's interesting in Tallahassee, and just really around the state. In Florida, yes, there's Republicans and Democrats, but within the Republican Party, there is a Trump Republican and a DeSantis Republican. How has that played out, not just in the legislature, but do you see that affecting things moving forward?
I do for the next couple of years, for sure. I mean, look, there's a divide that came from the presidential campaign that was never fully healed. There were the people who were with the president, and then there were the people who were with DeSantis. And it was very unfortunate, and it was very ugly, because if you step back and you think about it, DeSantis decided to run against the person who made him governor. I mean, there's no question that Ron would not have won the primary in 2018 if it hadn't been for Trump's endorsement. And so I think that was a very sort of traumatic breaking of a relationship and a breaking of the faith. And obviously you've got the people who are with DeSantis no matter what. You've got the overwhelming majority of Republicans, as I proved. Look, I ran a primary, and I was Trump's guy. I got 83%. I won by 70 points, something I don't think I'll ever do again. You don't normally get an 8 when you start an election result. But those two sides are there. And I obviously, look, the Trump side's going to win every time.
Do you think that'll affect Florida and how we fare with federal money or, policy?
No, because, I mean, all of us Republicans who are up there are on Trump's team. I believe all but one endorsed President Trump for re-election. I mean, we're all committed, from Aaron Bean on down. We are all committed. Sheriff Rutherford, Congressman Rutherford, we're all on Trump's team, and we're all going to be doing everything we have to do to make the president successful.
What's step one moving from a big fish in a little pond to a very large pond, right? As a freshman congressman.
Well, I was a little fish in that pond. I'm a little fish now. It's a lot to learn. I mean, the biggest change is there's so many people. There's 435 congressmen. They don't know each other. That's one of the things I've learned. There are 220 Republicans. I'm trying to figure out who all of them are. It's a lot of people, a lot going on in a very quick period of time. But the good news is I'm a fairly quick study, and I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to do this job the same way I built my businesses, the same way I got 43 bills passed in 8 years in the Florida House, which was putting my head down, fighting for what is right, and not worrying about it. I'm not a politician. I never aspired to do any of this. I retired from my businesses at 40. That was my career. This is a way to give something back. And for me, you see it here. I say what I think, and I do what I think is right. If people don't like it, they don't have to vote for me. But I found that there's a freedom that comes from that I'm going to continue to do as I move forward.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy.
Anytime.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for spending your Sunday morning with us. We'll be back next week with another episode of This Week in the 904.
Thanks for watching This Week in the 904.